welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. We're delighted that so many of you are here and able to join us. I want to thank you all again for your patience and welcome you to the 18th Goodman Lecture presented by Khyentse Foundation. I'm Trent Walker, a member of Khyentse Foundation Academic Development Committee. I'm also a postdoc at the Host Center for Buddhist Studies at Stanford University. And today I'm really delighted that we have a chance to learn from Professor Kumagai Seiji of Kyoto University. He'll be speaking with us about the past, present, and future of Buddhism and Buddhology in Japan. I'll say just a bit more about Professor Seiji in a moment. First, though, as most of you know, the Goodman Lectures are a monthly series designed to build bridges between academic and general audiences interested in Buddhism and Buddhist studies. And this lecture, as well as all past talks in this series, will be freely available online from Khyentse Foundation's website and social media channels. The Goodman Lectures are inspired by longtime Khyentse Foundation friend and advisor, Professor Stephen D. Goodman, who passed away in 2020. Our series tries to reflect Stephen's enduring vision of making academic talks sponsored by the foundation available to all. Khyentse Foundation sponsored by, or rather established by Dzongtsar Khyentse Rinpoche since 2001, has been supporting Buddhist study and practice now for over 20 years, including grants, scholarships, and other collaborations. For more information, please visit khyentsefoundation.org. Our esteemed speaker today, Professor Seiji Kumagai, studied Buddhist philosophy and received his PhD in 2009 from Kyoto University. And since that time, he's held a variety of positions at Kyoto University as the head of different research institutes, and has also served as a guest professor and researcher at different institutions around the world. The particular field that Professor Seiji is a specialist in is that of Buddhist Madhyamaka philosophy in India, Tibet, and Bhutan. And his published work on Bhutan, on both Buddhist thought and also on Bon thought in Bhutan, Tibet, and beyond is extremely important for the field. So some of his books include The Two Truths in Bon, Bhutanese Buddhism and Its Culture, and Buddhism, Culture, and Society in Bhutan. In addition to his work focusing on this intersection of philosophy in Indo-Himalayan Buddhism and Bon religion, Professor Seiji has also worked on some of the modern movements and currents of thought in Bhutan today, including ideas around gross national happiness. And he's also become quite important in the study of the present day interaction between Buddhism, between Buddhist studies or Buddhology as an academic field, and the well-being of society. And this includes a multi-year project that he's currently undertaking with support from Khyentse Foundation on that very theme of Buddhism, Buddhology, and social well-being in Japan. And we'll be hearing some of the results of that research and other work that Professor Seiji has done in this field. So it's particularly exciting for me to have this chance to learn from Professor Seiji today at this intersection of Buddhism, of Buddhist studies or Buddhology, and what can lead to happiness or well-being in society from our speaker's perspective. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome Professor Seiji, and we're so glad that you're here and will be able to share this talk with us. So as all of you know, we'll have a chance for Q&A after this. So if you want to send in questions at any time to KF Q&A via the chat feature, please do that. You can just send them as they come to you, and then we'll have a chance at the end for me to take the questions that you've asked and engage our wonderful speaker. So Please, Professor Seiji, the floor is all yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much and Dr. Trent, thank you very much for your very, very kind and long introduction about me. And first of all, I'd like to express my warmest gratitude to Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche and also our very precious colleagues in the Khyentse Foundation. Such as Dr. Trent, they are very, very kind to us and to you, everybody, always. And I appreciate today's precious audience. Thank you very much. And oh, I'd like to share my slide. Okay, can you see this slide? Okay.
Yes, it's working perfectly.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Professor Kumagai. Thank you.
Okay. So today I'd like to talk about the history and the current state and the future perspectives of Buddhism and Buddhist studies in Japan. But I'm not a Japanologist or a specialist of Japanese Buddhism, as Dr. Trent introduced. I major in Madhyamika philosophy in India and Tibet, and recently I'm studying Bhutan studies. And but before, so according to his introduction about me, I recollected that I studied only text before. So I read only Madhyamika philosophy's text and the picture, and I studied. But at that time, I thought that how my research can be helpful for everybody. And my research was useless for everybody. So always I thought like that. And my conclusion of today's talk is Buddhist activities and Buddhist studies should be collective and comprehensive. And because my study was very focused on only one text and two texts, very only philosophical texts, but I could not how can I say, apply it to the society. Then I try to broaden my specialties. And so today I will talk about Japanese Buddhism and Japanese Buddhology. And anyway, so today's my talk is based on my regret. Introduction. And thanks to advances in science and technology, material wealth and economy has grown significantly. The development of information science has allowed us to access vast amount of information. However, mental well-being has not yet been achieved, and the number of people suffering from depression and suicide has not decreased at all. It is an urgent issue to solve mental problems, especially during the COVID-19 disaster. We felt like that in the world. And as you know, Buddhism is considered one of the world's three religions and is widely practiced in Asia and recently in West as well. Now, while its religious aspect is essential, its highly sophisticated philosophy of the mind and the method to control the mind are also major characteristics of Buddhism. So in Japan, Buddhism is a traditional, traditional religion. So most of Japanese people think Buddhism is only religion. But so even Japanese people are surprised that the Buddhism has also a highly complex, developed, sophisticated philosophy, or a very good method to control our mind, pacify our anger, or etc. Because of its inclusive nature, Buddhism has been widely accepted in many countries. And sophisticated Buddhist philosophy and mental control techniques have also attracted attention in Western societies. And they were attracted by Buddhist practices such as meditation and compassion, helping people, and which are enough compatible with modern science. As you know, recently, Western psychologists and neuroscientists have conducted psychological or neuroscience research experiment on Buddhist meditation, how it functions for our health, especially mental health. And the number of followers of Buddhism has increased in the West. And the purpose, but first, as I said in my presentation, what what is the purpose of Buddhism? What Buddhism should be, or what Buddhism should functions. So the purpose of Buddhism is to realize happiness by pacifying afflictions, klesha or nyomon. And the primary purpose of Buddhism is to attain ultimate happiness, which is the attainment of Buddhahood or revelation, nirvana. And the Buddhist philosophy and the techniques to adjust the mind are also beneficial for attaining happiness on the worldly or conventional level. So as Dr. Trent introduced me, I also studied the two truths, the Satya Dubaya or Dempani. And there is a absolute truth and conventional truth. So there are two different types of level. And for example, the both are very important. Of course, the ultimate happiness is the ultimate goal for Buddhism, but at the same time, we should not forget the conventional or secular truth. The Nagarjuna explained in his Mura Madhyamika Karika that without understanding the conventional truth, we cannot attain the absolute truth. Otherwise, we cannot realize the nirvana. So both two types of level, two level, truth and two level happiness are important. And regarding situation in Japan, as I said, now in the West, and for example, near Japan, in Taiwan, Buddhism is, increasing. So Buddhism has this great potential in modern society and is highly appreciated in the East and the West. However, Buddhism is becoming less and less popular in Japan after opening the country in the 19th century. And the Buddhology in Japan, Buddhist studies in Japan, in Japanese universities has continued to shrink since around 1990s. And I studied Buddhology in 2000. Then at that time, there are many, many students, but little by little, gradually, the number of students of Buddhology is going down. What is the reason? One of the reasons is that the Buddhist world and the Buddhology in Japan came to be regarded as conservative and old-fashioned, not aiming at the ultimate happiness or worldly happiness, and no longer helpful to people in society. So when I was a student, and I studied philosophy, the Madhyamika philosophy like Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti, and then everybody asked me a question. So why are you studying Buddhism, not in Japan, not Japanese Buddhism, but Indian Buddhism, ancient one? And you're Japanese, and how to apply, how to use such ancient Buddhism for Japanese modern society people? Then I could not reply anything. But so anyway, like that. But later, I will explain how to apply and such traditional wisdom to modern society. So the purpose of this presentation. So I will, in my talk today, I will outline the history and the current status of Buddhism and Buddhist studies in Japan, very, very briefly and roughly, and discuss what they should be or become in the future. So could you please send me your questions and, some criticism. And in the next section, I will talk about history and the current state of Buddhism in Japan, and history and the current state of Buddhist studies in Japan, and the future Buddhism and Buddhology in Japan, very briefly. And the next section will discuss the history and current state of Buddhism in Japan. And this is the summary. This section is the summary of our research supported the Khyentse Foundation between 2021 and 22. So I really appreciate Khyentse Foundation's kind support to our research. The Buddhism spread to Japan in the 6th century. And on the other hand, Buddhism spread to Tibet in the early 7th century. So Japanese Buddhism is more ancient, not more, a little bit more ancient than Tibetan Buddhism. Almost near time. And in the 8th century, during the Nara period, Buddhism became the religion to protect the nation. Oh, that's also very similar. In Tibet too, Buddhism became a national religion in 8th century. And national monasteries called Kokubunji were built in all prefectures in Japan, and the Todaiji Temple, also called Kokubunji, and the head prefecture temples, was built as a central monastery in Japan. And Buddhism was positioned as a national religion, and the monks were state officials. In the Nara period, in the 8th century, there are 6 schools, which were traditional Buddhist schools in India and China. For example, in Japan, there were 6, as I said, 6 schools called the Sanlon School is similar to Madhyamika School, and Hosso School is similar to Yogacara School, and Kusha School is the school of Abhidharma Kosha, that is to say, similar to Sarvasvati, like that. So Japan also have a very similar system like Tibetan Buddhism, and the Vinaya School we also had. And in the early Heian period, in the 9th century, Saicho founded the Tendai school, and Kukai established the Shingon school, Vajrayana school. And Japanese Buddhism became unique with characteristics and doctrines which were not found in other countries. For example, enlightenment of plants. So according to traditional Buddhist schools, so they don't regard plants as a sentient being. So plants do not reincarnate, not like animals and human beings. But in Japan, so people came to think that even plants can live, and having sentient, how can I say, plants were regarded as sentient beings. So they also practice and become Buddha. And the original enlightenment, and the inherent enlightenment. So the people and all beings have already enlightened. They are already Buddha. So according to this theory, you are already Buddha, like that. You have your own Buddha inside you, and you already enlightened, like that. And according to traditional Buddhism, such ideas are not accepted, but Japanese Buddhism created original, very unique theories. And in early Kamakura period, Buddhist monks from Tendai school, such as Honen and Shinran and Nichiren, began to preach Buddhism to the general public. At that time, Buddhism was regarded as a spiritual power to protect the nation, and it was illegal to teach Buddhism to the general public. So there was a strict law or to prohibit Buddhist teaching to general public. So actually, the Honen and Shinran were arrested because they gave a talk to general public. And these new monks created new schools to save all beings, including the general public, based on Mahayana Buddhist doctrine. So before them, Buddhism was a national state religion, and the objective of Buddhism was to protect the nation. It's kind of a weapon, so kind of a military secret. So they were not allowed to release the information. Even now, if we release the secret military information to public, and then we are arrested. So like that. But the Hone and the Shinran read the text, and according to the Buddhist text, the Buddhism is not only for the nation, not only for the emperor or aristocrats, but for all sentient beings. Then they shift from kind of the offshore offshore monks to general monks, private monks for general public. And the number of temples increased dramatically in the early Edo period in the 16th century. The reason was the Shimabara rebellion, and which is a revolt by 37,000 Christian believers struggling to collect annual tribute against the feudal lord who holed up in an old castle. So they suffered from the heavy tax, and they had a riot, and they were very, very strong. And the Edo shogunate, feeling threatened by the Christians, the banned Christianity in 1612 and tried to convert Christians to Buddhism thereafter. So the Edo shogunate tried to use Buddhism and Buddhist monks to control Christians and try to convert them to Buddhism. And the number of temples increased rapidly to manage family registers to check their religion. And for example, or the number of temples of Jodo Shinshu School. Jodo Shinshu School is one of the biggest Buddhist schools in Japan. Jumped from 1,000 to more than 8,000 within 70 years. And the Buddhism was economically enriched by governmental support. So, and the Buddhism, in the Edo period, Buddhism and Buddhist temples had many roles. For example, government office function, so such as family register management, and educational function, offering a opportunity to study and to learn reading, writing, and thinking skills. And they had also cultural function, such as the tea ceremony or flower arrangement, art, garden, etc. So when you visit Japanese, monasteries and temple, you can see that there are very gorgeous, very beautiful gardens. And entertainment functions. Each temple offered annual festivals for local people. And the counseling function. So before people consulted with monks when in trouble. And the medical functions, they distributed medicines. And the religious function, of course, they are Buddhist temples. They offered Buddhist rituals, such as funerals, etc., and annual rituals. Anyway, Buddhist temples in Japan in Edo period had a local hub function, so-called comprehensive welfare facilities, including local government offices, culture schools, entertainment, medical care, and spirituality. So it functions very, very well for general public. In Japan, Buddhism has declined significantly in the modern era, while it had developed until the Edo period, as we saw in the last sections. There are three reasons as follows. The abolition of Buddhism during the Meiji era in the 19th century. In Japan too, there occurred a cultural revolution. And the modification of so-called wartime doctrine after the World War II, and the decline of the faith due to economic growth and scientific improvement. The first reason, the abolition of Buddhism. A decree was issued separating Shintoism and Buddhism in 1868. An imperial edict was issued declaring Shintoism to be the state religion, giving divine rank to the emperor in 1870. That means, that is to say, the emperor became God at the time. And Japan became a Shintoist country at that time. And the status of Buddhism decreased, and the movement of abolishment of Buddhism, and so-called Haibutsu Kishaku, occurred throughout the country, resulting in the destruction of Buddhist statues and implements. And the reason is that Buddhist temples impose a heavy tax and heavy financial burden on the people during the Edo period. Thus, a part of the populace and the Shinto side became dissatisfied. The result is that, and the system of head and the branch temples was dismantled, and the leadership of Buddhist schools was reduced. For example, all 1,600 temples were destroyed in Kagoshima Prefecture. So at the time, so in Edo period, Buddhism also became kind of the aristocrat who had a lot of territory, and they imposed the people a heavy tax. Then people were not very satisfied. And then after opening the country, it's very quickly changed. And during the World War II, Japanese traditional Buddhist schools cooperated with the war effort by creating wartime doctrines. So they changed their doctrines to support the World War II. And after the war, Japan failed, so we lost. Then they had to modify their wartime doctrines again, then lost the people's trust. So for people, they are very, they're very, surprised, and because they change the Buddhist doctrine for the war once, and after the war, they change again. And what is the real doctrine? So they don't understand, and they lost the trust against Buddhist schools. And the land reforms led to the division of temple and shrine lands, so temple and shrine lands to peasants, which resulted in the loss of income other than the donation. So they lost lands. So the income, so the temple's income became only the donation from the from the followers. And the Buddhism was forced to develop a business through precepts, funerals, prayers, tourism, etc., and gradually lost its lofty spirituality. So Buddhism became more and more business-like, and in Edo period they had they were very supported by the government financially, but now they lost such financial support, and the economic and doctrinal foundations collapsed. And the third reason, reliance on religion declines due to economic growth and scientific advancement. So that's why I received many critical questions. What is how your study, Buddhist study, is helpful for general public, because Buddhism is non-scientific, or it cannot make any money or like that. So I had a very big struggle. And from around the 1970s, the number of people who believed in superstition decreased. And they began to think that what is scientific is right, and what is not scientifically proven is wrong. So scientific is right, scientific issues is right, and non-scientific issues are wrong, like that. This is the two truths for current modern people, especially in Japan. Thus, Buddhism was also regarded as non-scientific religion, and its credibility decreased. In Japan, Buddhism declined in the modern era, while it had developed until the Edo period. In Edo period, as I explained, Buddhism was fully supported by the government. And the various roles that Buddhism had played during the Edo period, as I explained, have been drastically reduced and lost its popularity among the public since the modern era. As I explained, Buddhist temples had many roles until Edo period. And since the Meiji period, Buddhist temples have come to lose their roles to the following government offices and institutions. For example, regarding family register management was taken by government offices, and the educational function was taken by public and private school education. And the cultural function, they occurred various types of culture through the modernization and the internationalization. And the entertainment function. So now we have the various types of entertainment. And the counseling function. Now there are many professional modern style counselors, Western style counselors in Japan. So people don't go to a monastery, but they go to counseling institution. And medical function. People go to Western style hospitals to get medicine. And the religious function, as I said, Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, has become less popular since the end of World War II, or after opening country since Meiji period. And as a result, now, as of according to statistics presented by Mr. Ukai, as of 2019, 40% of Buddhist temples in Japan have an annual income of less than 3 million yen. So now Japanese temple is kind of the family business, family temple. And then their income is very low, much less than 5.5 million yen, which is a income per secular household in Japan. So Buddhist temple is much poor than a general house, general secular household. And by 2040, 30% of Buddhist temples in Japan are expected to be closed. And so now you understand the current situation of Japanese Buddhist temples and Japanese Buddhist monks are very difficult. And how to solve the such difficulties. A solution for the Buddhist community. The first step is to give up the trying to preserve the total number of temples. So I also have my small temple, and all Buddhist priests in Japan, they want to keep their monasteries, their temples, but everything is anitya or mitakapa, so everything is non-permanent. So while we would like to keep the number of the temples, but it's not permanent. So we should accept the number is decreasing. And since Japan's population, one of the reasons, Japan's population will decrease in the future, then the number of temples should also decrease. We'd like to keep the number of the temples, but you should think about the perspective of Japan's population. It's decreasing. It's decreasing. So the number of temples should also decrease. It's very natural. And income of Buddhist temples would decrease since other government offices and institutions have already taken on the function that were necessary during the Edo period. Yes, as I explained, in Edo period, Buddhist temples are very, very necessary, not only for religious perspective, but also official perspective. So that's why the number increased from the beginning of Edo period. In the case of the temple of Jodo Shinshu school, it jumped from 1,000 to more than 8,000. So then it's very natural to decrease the number of temple. By systematically reducing the total number of Buddhist temples, each temple can increase its income and improve their performance. So income is also very important to keep the performance of each temples. And Professor Keiji, and a philosopher, and Keiji Nishitani, in his lecture on Buddhism, given in 1980, around 1980, like that, lists 3 points to revive Buddhism: the social ethics and historicity and scientificity. I will explain later in a later section. And what performance should be improved in the future? So as I said, many functions of Buddhist temple already decreased, but religious function, regarding religious function, Buddhist services such as funeral and memorial services will decrease, but will not disappear. So as I said, Japanese people are losing their faith to Buddhism, but they will not stop the faith, only decreasing. So so the Buddhist service will decrease, but not become zero. And the counseling function. So people go to Western style counseling institution, but the counselors don't give them spiritual advices. So that's why the Buddhist monks can give spiritual advice, especially for for Buddhist way of life. And extraordinary space. As you know that the main hall of Buddhist temple is very, very extraordinary, and it gives a strong impact to general public, not only for Buddhists. So they can use the main hall as a special place, special space. And it could become a hub for the community where local people can gather. It is difficult to maintain the same scale as comprehensive welfare facility in like in the Edo period. It should be beneficial for society in both religious and non-religious aspect like that. And now I will explain the history and the current state of Buddhology in Japan. This section is the summary of our research supported by the Khyentse Foundation in 2022 and 23. The Buddhology, Buddhist studies, as well as Buddhism, was to protect the nation until around the 12th century. And 6 traditional Indian and Chinese schools were established in the 8th century in Nara period. And the Tendai and the Shingon schools were founded in the 9th century in Heian period. The schools were also to protect the nation, royal family, and the aristocrats, but teaching Buddhism to the public was forbidden. And so that's why the Buddhology became was also to protect the nation, and Buddhology became highly sophisticated philosophically by being supported by government. From around the 12th century, some monks of traditional Buddhist schools started to propagate Buddhism to the general public. Thus, Buddhology also became for the purpose of saving the general public. Um, that is to say, for both individual happiness and collective happiness. While the power of the Buddhist world declined due to the abolition of Buddhism in the Meiji era, Department of Buddhology were established in Japanese universities such as Tokyo Imperial University. Before that, each Buddhist school had a kind of the Buddhist university, Buddhist college, but it's not academic, Western style academic. It's very traditional way of Buddhology. And after a major period, Japanese government created a modern style university, which included also Western style Buddhology. The Buddhology became a study to systematically clarify Buddhist thoughts and history in a philological manner. And Buddhology lost the religiosity and became academic, primarily philosophical and historical. On the other hand, in Buddhist, traditional Buddhist school still had their institution to study Buddhology according to Japanese traditional way, Buddhist way. The purpose of Buddhology shifted from individual liberation to salvation of people to the development of academic scholarship. So it shifted from for Buddhists to general public. And as the importance of reputation within the academic community is emphasized, publishing scholarly books and papers became the main objective for Buddhologists. How many papers we write and how many books we publish. This is the value of current academic Buddhology, especially in Japan. While Buddhology became academicized, it lost its social usefulness in terms of individual liberation or salvation of people. So that's why, first question, when I was a student, I was criticized. What is your study, how your study can benefit people, modern people in Japan? As a result, Buddhology has often been labeled as a study and that is of no use to the public or on-table philosophy or like that. And the number of students studying Buddhology at universities is decreasing in Japan. Mm. And it will be difficult for Japanese Buddhology to maintain its top-level international performance in the future due to the decrease in the number of Buddhologists. And I introduce Keiji Nishitani very briefly. In his lecture on Buddhism, he listed three essential points to revive Buddhism: social ethics, and historicity, and scientificity. Regarding social ethics, so Nishitani argues that Buddhism should have the power to support the public's daily lives as a social ethic, so that people can use it for their daily life. Buddhism is often said to be difficult to understand. Thus, Buddhology should try to present Buddhism as secular ethics in a simple format so that the general public can understand and practice it very easily. Unfortunately, current Japanese Buddhology is still limited to philology and does not substantially impact on society. To solve the situation, our lab, Kumagai's lab, has been conducting interdisciplinary research by integrating humanities and science, and human science, social science, and science and technology by collaborating with academics and government and also industry. Regarding historicity, Nishtani states that it is necessary to look at Buddhism from a historical perspective as well as from a practical perspective. And if we can have both perspectives, it will be easier to concretize a future vision of Buddhism. The current philological Buddhology might be able to contribute to the historical aspect. So how to identify Buddhism historically, how is Japanese Buddhism, and how is Japanese Buddhology. So even philologists can contribute regarding this point. And third point is scientificity. Nishtani argued that since modern society relies heavily on natural science, it is necessary for Buddhism to hold a scientific viewpoints. And Buddhism has often been treated like a unscientific superstition, unfortunately, in Japan. But recent neuroscientific research on meditation has proved a scientific characteristic of Buddhism. But it is further required to be expanded, not only in neuroscience, but to other scientific fields. And recently, my group, my lab group, has linked cutting-edge engineering, such as AI, artificial intelligence, and the metaverse to Buddhism, raising awareness of Buddhism and making significant waves in the Buddhist world. Now, so people came to think, oh, Buddhism is also useful and scientifically proven in our daily life. And finally, in the last section, I'd like to introduce some activities for the future of Buddhism and Buddhology in Japan. Our laboratory has held many lectures, symposium, and seminars for general public for 10 years since 2012. For example, lectures on Bhutanese culture. And the Bhutanologists give a public lecture to 100 participants. So this size is very, very big in such a small city like Kyoto. And in Japan, before, Bhutan was very, was not famous at all. But after His Majesty, the fifth king, visited Japan, then Bhutan became very famous. But at the time, there was no not so many, only few Bhutanologists in Japan. Then Japanese people didn't get information about Bhutan. So that's why I asked a Bhutanologist in Japan to come to Kyoto University to give a public lecture for general public. And we also offered seminars on Bhutan, and Bhutanologists in the humanities and science introduced their research and hold discussion with both academic and citizens. And I'm originally a researcher on Tibetan Buddhism, so we offered the seminars on Himalayan regions. And my colleague, Dr. Takahiko Kamiyama, he studied online and on-site lectures on Buddhism, the Eastern thought, and traditional Japanese culture. And now his activity is featured in Japanese media, and he contributes to general public. And I also developed AI technology and metaverse technology. And not only me, so all Buddhists had such wishes. And I wish the Buddha were here to help me. I wanted to meet Buddha. I wish I could consult the Buddha anytime, anywhere about my problems. In order to fulfill such wishes, we released BuddhaBot, so-called Buddhist chatbot AI, 2 years ago. This is the example of a question and answer by the second prototype of BuddhaBot when we released it. Oh, now, you know, ChatGPT is very, very famous. So it's very similar to, it's kind of a Buddhist ChatGPT. So question is, for example, I'm worried about my PhD program because I cannot find a good topic. The answer of the Buddha Board, there is no increase in wisdom or scholarship for those who are hasty and lazy. I think this answer is not bad. Please note that this sentence is from Stanipata. But the quality was not very complete. For example, and against such to such question, and the answer is also kind of a question. So it's back. It's not perfect program. And against such different questions, the last prototype of BuddhaBot gave the same answer. But after making the AI learned more data, then it came to give different answers. And the BuddhaBot is continuing to evolve. We have completed the machine learning of the oldest Buddhist sutra, the Stanipata, and installing the next oldest sutra, such as Dhammapada and Udana Varga and Theragata, Terigata, like that. And we developed such a smartphone application similar to Line, like that. Sorry, it's in Japanese, but we can use such smartphone to chat with Stanipata and Dhammapada. However, chatbot allow for only text dialogue, but not face-to-face meetings. We still want to talk to the Buddha directly, not just chat with text. And we last year we created and released Terra Platform AR version 1.0, an augmented reality in AR to meet and talk with BuddhaBot. Not exactly Buddha, unfortunately. So please listen.
人間関係に悩んでいま
I
す。
translate. I'm worried about the human relationship.
人との交わりから愛着が生まれる。
So,
他に質問はございます
because
か
of the human relationship, we received affliction.
人生に悩んでいます。
I'm worried about my life.
人生には苦しみが付随する。
Our life always produce afflictions. Like that. And all answers are from Stanipata and Dhammapada now, because we made the AI learn only these two texts, these two sutras. And as you saw, we use the camera function of a smartphone. And the BuddhaBot avatar can be summoned in front of you. And with your smartphone, we can generate the Buddha avatar in front of you, in front of us. And when you verbally speak to the summoned BuddhaBot avatar and ask him questions, then he will give you answers based on Buddhist sutras. This is a mixture of traditional wisdom, artificial intelligence, and augmented reality. That is to say, Buddhist sutra, chatbot, and AR. So before I was criticized. Oh, your research is useless. So you studied very ancient Buddhist texts in India. how you can apply, use it for modern Japanese people. And now, when they use this Buddhabot and Terra Platform AR, and the answer is not perfect, but some of them said, "Oh, that's very useful. That's very good hint for our daily life." Then people stopped to criticize Buddhism. Oh, Buddhist sutra is still useful for present Japanese. So that's a big change. And we are now further developing new technology, so-called Teraverse. Tera is a, having 1,000 billion or something. So many verse, multiverse, and one of the Teraverse is a Buddhist verse. And Buddhist version of the metaverse by using AI, AR, and VR technology, freeing people from the constraints of physical space like that. So we can connect many metaverse and installing Buddhist thought and Buddhist information. And our lab also founded a startup company, Teraverse CO. Limited, because in the university, so some industries asked to university to conduct collaborative research project, but the universities is very, very slow. We need to submit many papers to step up and to proceed the procedures. So that's why we are now conducting our research and development both inside the university and outside the university. And Teraverse CO and Limited conducts both consulting and development of technology based on traditional wisdom, not only restricted to Buddhism, but also other religion and traditional wisdom. And then people came to think, oh, traditional wisdom or traditional religion are still useful in a modern life or in this in industry and also technology. And we will offer a Buddhist perspective to business and R&D for the happiness of all sentient beings. Not only Buddhist monks or not only Buddhologists can contribute to the happiness of all sentient beings. Business persons and R&D, everything could collaborate to offer some kind of the happiness to all sentient beings. We think like that. And finally, very briefly, I will introduce my another project, Japan's Moonshot project. Moonshot, but Japan's cabinet office studied Japanese style, Japanese type of moonshot project. And the Moonshot Goal 9 aims to realize a spirituality rich and dynamic society by the year 2050. And it will develop technology for visualization of the mind and transition of mind. Maybe you understand, oh, it's the methodology of Buddhism. That's very, very true. And it will reconstruct science and technology for real-time sensing of mental states and real-time biofeedback towards ideal mental states and circumstances. And this is what the Buddhist practitioner did by themselves, by using their body. But now we'd like to create the new technology like that. In addition to, but it's not restricted to only Buddhism. And in addition to science and technology, we will realize the well-being of individuals, groups, and society by using comprehensive knowledge and comprehensive collective knowledge that integrates all human wisdom, including humanities and social science, traditional wisdom, music, art, and secular knowledge. in the area of Buddhism. Among now, we have 12 project teams, and one of the project led by brain scientist Professor Imami is developing a technology to apply neuroscience research on meditation to real-time feedback. It is still meaningful to continue to current philological Buddhology. So text study is very, very important, but that alone is not enough. So to conduct Buddhology that fits in with current society and lead people to happiness is required for the future as a future Buddhology. And to conduct Buddhology that is compatible with science, Buddhists should become more compatible with science, according to the saying by a philosopher Keiji Nishitani. So this now I conclude my presentation. Today's presentation referred to many issues about past and present and future Buddhist activities and Buddhist studies. And we should rethink for what we should conduct Buddhism or Buddhology. And it is simple. We should do it for happiness of individuals and groups and society. So in Japan, Buddhist schools are very divided into different schools, and Buddhology is also separated and very specialized. It's complex, but it's very specialized. So we should collect them. And if it's collected and comprehensive, Buddhism and Buddhology could become much more helpful for the society. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kumagai, for that fantastic lecture and for taking us in all these exciting directions. You've really captured both an historical sweep of how Buddhism and Buddhist studies developed and changed over time in Japan, as well as showing us some of the paths forward you're exploring. I notice you have one more slide there. Did you want to discuss that?
Oh, no. This is just an image to, okay. Can you see that?
Yes.
Sorry. This is what we are creating as a Buddhist metaverse. So we can use a physical space. In 2040 in Japan, it's expected many Buddhist temple, more than 30% of Buddhist temple crafts. But by using IoT, we can connect the temples to keep their performance. But we can also use a cyberspace. We can, generate some temple or cyber temples, or we can communicate in cyberspace with monks, and we can, how can we say, create a kind of a Buddhist world on metaverse like that. So if we could, I can say, combine both physical space and the cyberspace, we can make much richer our spiritual space. And sorry, this is just additional, slide. Sorry to bother your talk.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for sharing that. And my apologies for mixing up your given name and your surname, Professor Kumagai. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we have lots of fascinating questions coming in. And for those of you that have questions on your mind and would like to pose a question to Professor Kumagai, please, again, submit that over the chat feature to KF Q&A so that I can pose those questions to our speaker today. So we have questions from each of the different parts of your talk, and maybe we'll proceed a little bit in order of those parts. So in terms of the question of what was changing in the world of Buddhism and Japanese society during the Meiji era. I'm curious how the narrative that you've told us fits in with what some other scholars have described as the changes taking place during that time. So one thing that often gets said about the changes to Buddhism during the Meiji era include the change in terminology. So instead of using Buppo or Butsudo, like the Buddha Dharma or the way of the Buddhas to describe what we might label as Buddhism, there's a shift to use a phrase like Bukkyo, so that Buddhism becomes part of a constellation of Shukyo, part of a constellation of religions that can be understood as functioning with certain ideas in the modern world. And I'm curious about how that change, the way in which Buddhism became a religion and also involved a rejection of superstition, according to some scholars of that period, how does that figure into what you see as the important changes in Buddhism during that key period?
During the opening of the country, right? From Edo period and the Meiji period.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for a very important and difficult question. And how can we say? And it's shift gradually, I think, because the situation was different in the city and on the countryside. So of course, we cannot say at the same level, in the city level and the local level. But as I said, and the political system changed, and the main change is the political system. So Buddhism was a national religion, and after opening the country, Buddhism became non-national religion. So Shintoism became the national religion. So that's why people, I think the general people were first puzzled, or what I should rely on. This is a very big point. And then, how can we say, the in Meiji period, people still had a superstition. They had a faith, but in some areas, as I said, in Kagoshima prefecture, in some prefectures, like in Kagoshima, the all monasteries disappeared. So that's a very big loss, and so they shift quickly from Buddhism to Shintoism. So first, I think that I imagine that they were really puzzled, but the general public don't understand what changes, and the government say you must not believe Buddhism, you must believe Shintoism. And after that, people are, I'm not very sure, but the people are divided into two different layers. Originally, I was born as a Buddhist, but at the same time, politically, I need to believe in Shintoism. So I think it's dual, according to my speculation. So this is a very big shift. So unique religion to double religion. But before in Japan, there are both Shintoism and Buddhism. So there are two different religion matching together. So in some temples there is also a shrine, Shinto shrine. And in Shinto shrine, there's a small temple, so it is a mixture. But in Meiji period, Buddhism and Shintoism is totally different, and you must respect Shintoism first, and Buddhism is different. So I think their faith became much more modernize and Shinto, Shinto fast, but some of them cannot accept as a native Buddhist like that. So
Thank you so much. That really illuminates some of the key dynamics of that period. We have another question that's related to the same period, so I'd like to bring it in now. And then we have a lot of questions that are related to the last third of your talk. So we'll get to those in a sec. But one more question about this middle part. And this is a question from my colleague, Dr. Mingyuan Gao of Khyentse Foundation. And he writes, there's been a movement to revive Chinese Buddhism since the early 20th century, known as Renjian Fojiao, or humanistic Buddhism. And its main idea is to divert the subject of Chinese Buddhism from the funeral ceremony and so on to more active fields, focusing on living people, social service, the kind of ideas that you raised in your talk around benefit to people's happiness, etc. So what do you see as, do you see a similar trend during that period? This would be the kind of interwar period prior to the Second World War. Was there a similar trend in Japanese Buddhism? Was there a connection to what was happening in Chinese Buddhist thought? And then later on, you mentioned, of course, around the way that, say, certain Buddhist practices are flourishing in Taiwan, and many of those successful schools are tied to the legacy of humanistic Buddhism. So I'm just curious how you might see those ideas within a Japanese context.
Oh, so especially after World War II, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, during the World War II, Japanese traditional Buddhist schools changed their doctrines to support the World War II. After World War II, Japanese people regretted what they did, what we did. So we need to modify our all of the culture and the way of thinking or like that. It's too extreme sometimes, but we first refuse everything, what we did and what we thought. At that time, Buddhist schools also supported the war. So that's why, Buddhism was also bad, like that people thought. Then, of course, the first Buddhist schools, I can say, regretted what they did, and the people lost their, people lost the respect to Buddhist schools. But at the same time, a new Buddhist trend, studied, so-called SGI, I think, Soka Gakkai International, maybe in the States, they are very, very active. So on the other hand, they very rapidly increased their followers because during the World War II, they did not change their doctrine, and they were arrested. And I forgot, perhaps the second, leader of the SGI, he died in the jury or something. During the World War II or after World War II. So they did not follow, Japanese government's order. Traditional Buddhist school accepted the government to support the war, and they changed. But some new school did not change. So after World War II, they got attracted people, and they increased the number of followers. And then they really tried to support people's daily lives. So this is the opposite situation. But still, Japanese Buddhist schools kept their followers according to traditional ways, because their activities are completely different, the modern style and, traditional style. And people, there are two different types of people who want the traditional types, go to the, traditional Buddhist temple to, pray and chant the traditional sutras, and other new type of people. Oh, Buddhists must be helpful for daily life, and for our daily life. So it's split, I think. And the new movement got more and more believers. So we could say that they are successful, like the new movement in Taiwan and China, like that.
Thank you. Throughout your talk, including your answer just now, you've been situating us within this landscape of different sects or schools of Japanese Buddhism. In the first third of your talk, you showed us how the development from the 6 schools of Nara, the 2 new schools that came about in the Heian period, and all the other new schools reaching out to a broader public, some of them in the Kamakura period, etc., shaped what was happening in Japanese Buddhism over time. And then just now you mentioned like for instance, one of the offshoots of this Nichiren school, this now it's Soka Gakkai International that has a particular orientation. As you know, many of the people who are here at this talk, because of its connection to Khyentse Foundation and the work of Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche, are connected to Vajrayana practices. And one questioner writes, recently I visited Japan and was surprised to see many Shingon practitioners, mostly younger adults. Could you say something about how the Shingon school today fits into some of the trends you're seeing for the present and the future of Buddhism in Japan? How do you see the Shingon school fitting in?
Oh, sorry. I don't have enough knowledge about Shingon school, while I have some colleagues in Koyasan University, and I don't know the current situation of Shingon school, but Koyasan University is trying to do some very interesting activities. So they have the traditional Buddhology based on Vajrayana and Vajrayana school, but at the same time, they created a kind of a psychology department linked to Buddhism. So Buddhist psychology or something, Buddhist psychology or something. I think that's very new, new movement, and but I don't know how it functions for general public. But there is I forgot when, but one association, academic association of Buddhist psychology, the Japan's Association of Buddhist Psychology, was founded. I'm not very sure 10 years ago or something, and they tried to combine or integrate Buddhism and modern psychology, and some professors of Koyasan University join in. So Shingon, I'm sorry about my answer is not direct to the question for the but some new movement is conducted in Koyasan University, but not Shingon school. I'm not sure, so I'm sorry. I could not answer.
Thank you so much. And my internet just had an issue, so if I cut out again, my apologies. Hopefully you're still able to hear me. So on that note, because in your talk, you mentioned around the success and interest of Bhutanologists in Japan and people interested in the kinds of work that you do on the study of Vajrayana Buddhist societies, as well as forms of Mahayana thought that are articulated within Tibetan and Bhutanese systems. Could you say anything about the place of not Shingon, but Vajrayana practices imported from Tibet or Bhutan in Japan? What's the interest around that in contemporary society?
Okay, thank you very much for a very important question. And actually, Himalayan Buddhism is not very popular in Japan. because there are so many strong tradition of Japanese Buddhism, and in Japan, we have a how can we say a Danka system. Danka is the follower of the temple. So each temple has their followers. So it's a little bit different from Himalayan culture. In Himalayan culture, we try to find a good lama and a person base. And so Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche is very, very popular, and many people follow him from everywhere. But in Japan, according to the Edo system, Edo shogunate system, so in Edo period, the government created the temples in each prefecture and each village, each town to control the people. So all people living in the village under the temple, they are controlled. So they are not allowed to go to another temple like that. So they are obliged to go to the same temple. So we have still such a culture. In Japanese Buddhism, so we were temple based. So that's why people are not accustomed to go to see the new other temples or other monks. It's we call impolite to change the temple. So that's why Japanese Buddhism is conservative and not very flexible. This is one reason. So Japanese Buddhism are very, very not dynamic. So each people must belong to one temple. So it's very difficult to change the school. So my school is Jodo Shinshu school, but our followers cannot change in general, cannot change the temple or even temple. So that's why it's very, very difficult to change their school. So this is one situation. And but now, for example, His Holiness Dalai Lama is famous in the world, and Japanese intellectual people are very interested in his talk and his books. And many books are translated into Japanese, and he discusses with many politicians and and also scholars. Then people came to understand Buddhism is not only a religion, but it has a sophisticated philosophy, practical to our business or sports or art and our daily lives. And then they belong to their temple originally, but they started to go to listen to such Lama's talk, preaching. And Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche's book is also translated into Japanese, thanks to Khyentse Foundation and my Japanese colleagues. Then little by little, people came to touch and the direct, teaching of Himalayan, lamas, and they are very collective and comprehensive, their talk. So that's why, and the first slide, Buddhist activities and Buddhist studies should be collective and comprehensive. So always Japanese Buddhist say, oh, according to Jodo Shinshu school, we say. So me too, in my temple, according to Jodo Shinshu doctrines, we should do. But the Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche don't say like that. Oh, according to Nyingma school, blah, 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 they never say that. Oh, you should do that. According to Buddhism or according to my experience, maybe you can do that. You can do. So their saying is very comprehensive and future-oriented, and not restricted to only Buddhism and based on Buddhist philosophy. But so that's why their saying is attracting people gradually. So that's why I think in the future, definitely people will tend to trying to find such a good Lama, not temple-based, but Lama-based. So it will shift from a temple-based and to a Lama-based. Sorry, this is my.
So something that's so fascinating about that response is that part of what you were laying out for us in the course of your talk was that part of the advantage of the Danka system that you've mentioned, of this temple-based system where people within their locality have their family register and their ancestors and their cyclical rites of the year and also of various life cycles are tied to a temple in a particular place that's also a temple within a certain sect. That had certain kinds of structural advantages, but it also sounds like it has certain kinds of disadvantages in terms of making it harder for people to experience or access other kinds of Buddhist ideas. And certainly what you've also mentioned towards the end of your talk around the metaverse, and also that slide that you're showing, this kind of transformation of physical space towards an online space, is something that I'd love to ask you more about. And then we also have some questions about the Buddha bot. So maybe we'll do the Buddha bot second, but if I could just ask you some questions related to the metaverse. And some people have messaged me directly and expressing this sense of, I don't know if I'm comfortable with an AI Buddha, or I don't know if I'm comfortable with this metaverse.
How comfortable? Yeah.
Yeah. So part of what's happening, say, within a North American context at present, is that there's a lot of fear around AI, a lot of anxiety around AI, and around risks, also fear around screens and things that are not face-to-face human interaction. So can you tell us a little bit about how those fears fit in with your projects?
Thank you very much. That's a very essential question and criticism against the cyberspace. And I totally agree with your, how can we say, anxiety about the exaggeration of cyberspace. And but as a conclusion, after developing the AI and AR and the metaverse, I came to understand how physical space is important. On the other hand, so cyberspace is very, very convenient. So AI, chatbot, and the metaverse, very, very convenient. But at the time, by the current the level of technology, it cannot compensate our communication completely. Because, for example, in the Zoom is very beneficial for us. Before, we could not have such types of the talk or discussion. So we need to appreciate such technology. But at the same time, we can use only how can I say, visual and auditory, senses. And we cannot touch together while we are inventing the tactical virtual reality. And we cannot, so there is no smell, and we cannot there is no taste. So current cyberspace is limited to only visual and auditory. And so that's limited. We need to know that it's not perfect. And physical communication compensates much more. The five sense, it compensates five sense. So that's a complete difference between current cyberspace and physical space. So we should not exaggerate too much the cyberspace. And so that's why. But as I said, and the cyberspace is convenient, so we can compensate convenience, but not perfect. So that's why I propose that we can combine or integrate in good manner to feel comfortable for everybody. So it depends on different. Cyber native generations, maybe they may feel more comfortable than us in the cyberspace. So that's why, but for elderly people, senior person, they feel discomfortable well, with, cyberspace. So we should not decide only one way. You must, everybody must do that. We don't say so each people can select as they want. This is my answer regarding the pros and cons of cyberspace and physical space. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We just have time for one last question, and this is combining together a number of questions that people have asked around the Buddha bot that you gave us some really fascinating examples of this work in progress. And something that struck me was the teachings articulated in the Sutta Nipata and the Dhammapada. In some ways, they could be quite different than what might be taught in your home tradition of Jodo Shinshu. Very different ideas
Yes,
and
very
responses
different.
to questions. And the people are also wondering, like, what direction, what kinds of texts might be added in the future, like given your interests and ideas around two truths, for instance, will there be a place for Nagarjuna or Madhyamaka kinds of responses within this system? That's sort of one part of the question. And then what someone else has asked is, given Mahayana ideas of all sentient beings eventually achieving liberation, will the Buddha bot become sentient? And will it too achieve Buddhahood?
Yeah, that's very interesting and a very good question. And thank you very much for your various perspective of question. And first, can I add some more answer to the last question regarding
Please.
the value of the Himalayan lamas in Japan? And as I said, Japanese Buddhism is temple-based, and the Japanese people will shift from temple base to lama base. At the time, Himalayan lamas can help, can be attractive for Japanese people, but there are some bottlenecks because Japanese people are not very good at English. Like me, so sometimes we have a problem to listen to English teaching. So how can we say, the translation problem is still existing. And so two ways. So we will offer a good simultaneous translation in cheaper price, for example, in AI or like that, because it's very, very costly to hire a simultaneous interpreter for each talk. And the second one, Japanese Buddhist monks should become much more comprehensive to give a talk like Himalayan lamas. Like that. And how can we say? But as I said, but Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche cannot come to my temple in Hiroshima. That's very difficult, physical problem. So still, each temples, local temples in all prefectures, they have the value to become the hub for general people or the monks to support the communication with local people. So it could be two different layers. And in Himalayan countries, there exists such a similar situation. There are many local temples. The local temples, the abbots, so they are very helpful for local people, but their intellectual level is not very high in comparison to the high lamas. So the local people use the local temple and such good so differently. So for annual ritual or something, they go to the local temple. But regarding the teaching, they join in and the bigger monastery. They went to the bigger monastery, or now we can listen to such good lamas talk, online. So so like that, we can separately use the temple functions and big llama functions, and also we can use cyberspace. And now we can listen to such a great lamas preach and talk online, or in the future, if we could, hold a metaverse to, for example, discuss with Rinpoches like Zonsa Khyentse Rinpoche in metaverse, it could become a much more, it could make our spiritual life richer. Sorry, this is my additional answer to the last question. And now regarding the Buddha board, there are many questions, and I also think that there are many criticisms to the current quality of Buddha board or future perspective of Buddha board. And as you said that there are different traditions, and Theravada and Mahayana and Zen Buddhism or like that. So first of all, I wondered which text I should make the AI learn. And first, I'm Japanese, so I try to pick up Japanese traditional Buddhist scriptures. And at that time, I was a little bit shocked. And I belong to Jodo Shinshu school, and we use Shoshinge composed by the founder Shinran. And if we make the AI learn, the machine learning, the Shoshinge scripture, then what will happen? For example, when we ask the AI the question like that, perhaps my company will lay me off very soon. What should I do? I'm very anxious. At the time, you're lucky. You will lose your job. Then you can concentrate on, you understand Buddhist activities, the faith, and toward the, scarcity. Or, for example, some young boy, I divorced with my wife. I shocked. Oh, you're lucky. You can concentrate to your bodhisattva way like that. That's very true, but very true. But the level is very very high. So always you must chant, you must chant, you must chant, or like that. So there is no other advice than that. But for example, Prajna Paramita Fridaya Sutra. So everything is shunyata, everything emptiness, So for example, I will lose my job. Oh, what's the problem? Big problem. Oh, there is no job. Job is empty. Nicht bababa. And shunyata. So you don't need to worry about your job. Oh, I divorced my wife. Oh, there is no wife. There is no subababa in wife. so that's very, very good advice, but very, very high, advice for general public. Then for general public, they should, they need a much more concrete advice. Oh, I really love the alcohol, but in Stanipata, you should not drink alcohol, or you should not tell a lie, or you should not have a relation with other than your wife or something. That's very, very concrete advice in daily life. So that's why first I decided to select Stanipata and ancient sutras. The ancient sutras are, so Stanipata is regarded as a sutra of Theravada, but it's very basic of all tradition, right? So I think that Tibetan monks does not, and does not disagree with Stanipata's idea. And they added much more, Mahayanic theory on the basis of Theravada. So that's why, so basic, sutra could be shared with more people. So that's why I first select Stanipata. But in the future, after finishing the machine learning of such ancient Buddhist sutra, such as Stanipata, Dhammapada, or Udana, etc., then I'm wondering which text we should do the machine learning. For example, Mahayana sutras, or we now restrict only the sutra, but shastra, like the commentary or general text, general book about Buddhism, composed by a Buddha's disciples or other thinkers, Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, or Vasubandhu, or like that. Then we can create a different data set. And the basic data set is, for example, Stanipata. And if the Mahayana, followers want to use the so-called Buddhabot, Buddhist chatbot, and they integrate the Stanipata and the Prajnaparamita, Hridaya Sutra, Prajnaparamita Sutras data set, and then they can receive the both, basic teaching and also Mahayanic, teaching theory. So like that, we can integrate the teaching together, and we don't need to stick to Buddhism. And those who are interested in both Buddhism and also Greek philosophy, for example, then we can integrate Buddhist data set and Greek philosophy, Socrates or Aristotle's theories, and then they can receive it differently, and they different data. This is the way how to differentiate the feedback according to each person's requirement, and the risks or something. And there are many risks for such types of chatbot. For example, now we did completed machine learning only the sutra, but the sutra is the sutra text is not comprehensive. This is just a textbook, and always Buddhist lamas give them mengak, upadesha, so oral instruction according to each person's situation. So that's why if we get only the sutra information, it could be misleading. So always we need to check how it functions. And so now we put the Buddhabot some functions, feedback functions. That means it's correct or wrong, or prefer or non-prefer. And then we can check how the old sutra is regarded correct or incorrect, or preferred or non-preferred for 21st century people. And we should create some assessment committee how it works. And we can also badly use this this technology. For example, if I prepare the fake data, so I said, oh, Buddhabot learned on this Stanipata, but if I add with evil motivation to add fake information in the Buddhabot, then, but general people cannot understand which is real Buddha's teaching and fake teaching. So we should be very, very careful about such risks, and misleading and misuse, or like this is current our our thinking about the risks and for the future perspective.
Thank you so much, Professor Kumagai. And I think this is a good place to stop at this point. As you can imagine, your wonderful talk has brought up so many questions, many more than we're able to get to in the limited time we have together. So I apologize to those of you that had questions and we weren't able to get to them. It's just it's your talk has brought up so many questions and interests from people, and so we can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your thoughts on the past, present, and future of Buddhism and Buddhology in Japan. And just to echo what one audience member wrote as a comment in thanks to you, this person wrote, "Thank you, Professor Kumagai, for your erudite study." Yes?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I forgot to answer one important question. So the AI can become a Buddha or something. Sorry, so I need to answer this question. So for the moment, is it okay? Just 3 minutes, okay?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. So if you are busy, so you can log out. But first question to start to make this AI. I had two different questions. The first one, can we make the Buddha or Buddha's intelligence by AI? But at the time, we got a conclusion that according to current technology, we can't make Buddha or Buddha's intelligence. But we can create a chatbot so that the chatbot could offer like Buddha's preaching. So we decided to make the AI to learn the study pattern like that. So the chatbot, like Buddha's, Buddha's oral teaching. But the fundamental question, whether we can create the Buddha or Buddha's intelligence by AI, and still now I cannot answer this question. But for example, if we do the machine learning a lot, then now ChatGPT is a very human-like, not, but still, it's we can find it's not human's answer. But if we make the machine learning much more, then we can make the AI who can communicate with us like human. So we cannot identify which is human or which is AI in this level. And then this is a problem. Even if the level is not identical to Buddha, but if we cannot identify this is a Buddha or this is AI Buddha, then that's a very problem. And the AI is not identical to Buddha, but we cannot identify or differentiate. This is the next level of risk and answer to the question. We can create an AI Buddha or not. So even if we cannot create AI Buddha, but we can, in the future, we can make AI so that we cannot differentiate a Buddha or not. So for somebody, it's Buddha. So they may believe that. So that's a very big problem and also the risk. And this is the answer to the question. We can make a AI Buddha or AI can attain the enlightenment. So sorry, I interrupted your conclusion. So this is my last answer.
Not at all.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. And that raises again so many fascinating questions, including ideas, say, within the Zen tradition that it takes a Buddha to know a Buddha. And what does that mean for AI Buddhists? So just to come back to what the person was saying, they've written, "Thank you so much, Professor Kumagai, for your erudite study and your lecture on Buddhism. I've now understood the state of Buddhism in Japan. It's encouraging to know that people like you are innovating with modern technology and AI to make Buddhism relevant and accessible to the world. Wishing you all success in your endeavors." So just wanted to convey that piece of gratitude from someone in the audience. So again, we really appreciate your time. Thank you, all of you who've been here and shared your questions and enthusiasm with regards to this lecture. As we come to an end here now, I just wanted to let you know that the next Goodman lecture will be delivered by Professor Xu Shengxin of National Taiwan University. This talk will be in Chinese and will be hosted by my colleague, Dr. Mingyuan Gao. It will take place Taipei time at March 18th, 2023, and then the previous day, for instance, in New York and San Francisco. It'll be in the middle of the night for those of you in Europe. And this talk will be on Zhuangzi and Zen. So if you're on the Khyentse Foundation mailing list, you'll hear more about this event in early March, including how to sign up. In April, we'll have a talk by Dr. Gareth Sparham that will be in English, as well as another talk in English in May by Eric Pema-Kunsang. So as always, to stay in touch about upcoming events, please visit www.khyentsefoundation.org/events, as well as www.khyentsefoundation.org/the Goodman Lectures. Once again, thank you, all of you, for joining us. We really hope to have a chance to see you again soon. May you all be safe and well.